Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nightly Scroll. I'm Hayley, Caronia. I see some of you in the chat wondering if we were going to be right on time tonight, and we were maybe a second late. Yesterday, we were maybe a few seconds late. We were right on time Monday and Tuesday. This is good enough. So I feel like we're going to be great the rest of the week. And it's all because we started off strong on Monday. So absolutely love it. Thanks for tuning in. If you're part of the homies and you're scrolling in the chat, 6 p.m. Eastern time right here on Rumble, rumble.com/Hayley's, where you can watch Nightly Scroll in full live. You can also catch it later on if you don't want to, or you can't catch it at 6 p.m. Eastern time, or you can listen on wherever you get your podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you're getting your show. Make sure that you send the link to a friend because it always helps. So thank you all for joining the show tonight. And this is what we have on deck. The President of the United States and Vice President of the United States were apparently snubbed, if you can really call it that. They were not invited to former Vice President Dick Cheney's funeral, and I'm sure they are just devastated. Also, another Democrat has been nabbed in a COVID fraud scheme. This time, a congresswoman ripped off FEMA for $5 million, and she may just land herself in jail for decades. Also, a new COVID study out of Korea says the vaccinated are more likely to develop respiratory infections. They said the cure can't be worse than the disease, and it seems like, the hits just keep on coming and they don't stop coming. And every day I'm grateful that I didn't take that thing. The more information that comes out, it's not looking good. And the Transportation Department wants to bring decorum back to air travel in what they're calling the golden age. Does this mean we're going to have no more airport brawls to break down on this show?
Oh, they're always going to be there.
They're always going to be there. Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. Also, former Secret Service agent and host of the Beyond the Service podcast, Scott Bryson, is here for tactical detail. All that and so much more on this episode of Nightly Scroll earlier this month. And neither Donald Trump nor J.D. Vance were apparently invited to Cheneys' funeral. And there were over 1,000 guests that were expected, but it was invite only. Invite only. And I've never really heard of a funeral that was invite only, but that it was invite only because they didn't want two very specific people to show up.
That's about as obvious as it gets.
Yeah, totally. So the funeral happened earlier this morning at Washington's National Cathedral. And, George W. Bush was there. Joe Biden was there. Former Vice President Kamala Harris, former Vice President Mike Pence, Al Gore was there. Dan Quayle was there. Supreme Court justices were there. Chief Justice John Roberts, Supreme Court Justices Brett Kavanaugh and Elena Kagan were expected to attend. People on both sides of the aisle showed up to this thing, which is normal. We usually see this when it's a high-profile political death like this, where there's a funeral. We see all the sides come together. They sit next to each other. They shake hands. I forget off the top of my head what funeral it was, but Trump and Obama were sitting next to each other and they're kind of shooting the shit and laughing with each other.
Was that Jimmy Carter?
Jimmy Carter's funeral, exactly. So this is normal, right? And Nancy Pelosi was in attendance. Senate Majority Leader John Thune and former leader Mitch McConnell were there. And, the Cheneys and the Trumps, they're not exactly buddy-buddy, right? President Trump didn't have some nice things to say about Dick Cheney, also Liz Cheney. And Dick Cheney said that, Trump was a coward, no greater threat to the Republic. And Liz Cheney, of course, was one of the Never Trumper rhinos on the January 6th committee. And, I'm sure she had something to do with this decision that President Trump and his vice president were not going to be in attendance. And I was reading a few different articles on this, and I was not cracking up, but I just find it funny. This is what CNN said. I'm just going to read a little snippet from it. It says, the funeral's guest list itself is a nod to a time when Washington was not so polarized and politicians from both sides of the aisle paid their respect when a dignitary passed away. Well, guess who would have been there if they were invited? I think if invited, President Trump and Vice President Vance would have done the thing that CNN was talking about. pay their respects in a dignified manner, regardless of political differences or anything like that. If Trump and Vance were invited, I'm sure that they would have been there. So, this guest list that excludes Trump and Vance, how does that nod to a time when Washington wasn't polarized? Not inviting them is polarizing. How can you get back to the good old days when politicians of both sides of the aisle could put their differences aside and come together and grieve the death of one of their colleagues by not inviting the current president of the United States? It's so hypocritical. But, the future of the GOP is top of mind, of course, considering Trump is this lightning rod in politics, certainly on the right side of the aisle, and he pisses off the left at every turn. And, the GOP is going to have to navigate the future of the party without Trump, because President Trump himself is never going to be on the ballot ever again. So what happens to the MAGA movement that he started? What happened to, or what will happen to America First when Trump goes away? Well, certainly Vice President Vance can carry the torch. We think, he's never said, but we kind of think that he will run, right, in 2028. Or maybe another Republican candidate potentially will carry this America First torch. I don't know. But President Trump changed politics forever. There is before Trump and there is after Trump. There just is. In 2015, when he came down the escalator in Trump Tower, we didn't even know it at the time, but politics was going to change forever. Before Trump, after Trump. And before Trump, I think personality was a plus. It's good to have a good personality. People respond to that. But it wasn't everything. After Trump, it became everything, right? Because we saw in 2024 when other Republicans were up against Trump, I'm thinking specifically of Ron DeSantis, he ran for president and he was I like Ron DeSantis a lot, but he was a total wet napkin on the debate stage. And next to Trump, who's this larger than life personality, he falls flat and everyone else fell flat next to him. If you take Trump off of the stage, are we going to want to see that same kind of larger than life personality? I think yes. Certainly, it's not going to be this stark contrast where you have Trump on the stage and then a bunch of wet napkins. It's not going to be like that because he's not going to be on the stage. But I think that personality and, this being a bulldog and just taking on everyone, that matters. Before Trump, stacked political resumes mattered, right? Hillary Clinton was, on paper, the most qualified person to ever run for president. This is what they kept saying. She was Secretary of State. She was all these things, right? That doesn't matter after Trump. Now outsiders are preferred. People who haven't been womb to tumors, people who haven't been corrupted by the swamp for so many years. People like Joe Biden who have been in office for 60 plus years. And people don't want to see that anymore. That's because of Trump. Trump changed that forever. He was the first outsider to be like, yeah, I'm a businessman, and all of you career politicians have been effing this up royally for years. And I'm going to come in and shake it up. It's going to be different. And then even on a very fun level, a less serious level, before Trump, presidents wouldn't post memes on social media. This is unheard of. A president wouldn't get on Twitter and call the North Korean dictator Rocket Man and kind of get fired up and call people nicknames or any of that stuff. During Trump 2, everyone's getting in on that now. JD Vance dressed as the memes that people were making fun of him with as his Halloween costume. Gavin Newsom has been doing the Trump thing by posting these memes on social media. They're all taking a page out of Trump's book. Trump wrote the playbook. Now politics is going to follow that forever on both sides of the political aisle. Whether they want to admit it or not, they're all following Trump's playbook. He is definitely I'm not saying that, Democrats tweeting and hopping on TikTok trends is because of Trump necessarily. This is just the way that social media is now, right? Like they were going to be hopping on these trends whether Trump was or not. But President Trump is most definitely the first president to post memes in office. Biden didn't do that. Trump was the first one. I believe he had a cabinet meeting where he threw down the sanctions are coming Game of Thrones meme on the table, like a literal physical printout of a meme. He was the first to do it. And then after that, like Biden posted the Dark Brandon meme, but Trump set the tone, right? Like Trump one set the tone, then Biden did it. Now Trump's doing it. Now everyone else is following him. So it just makes you think about the future of politics in general, not just on the right side, but on both sides. Will candidates in the future be expected to take on the swamp, call out the mainstream media, constantly communicate via social media, have this larger than life personality? Because now it's what we're used to. Trump is unconventional, and I can't see Republican voters getting behind some lukewarm, red flag law pushing neocon that wants to, get us into endless wars. But they're going to try. So here's an interesting headline that I saw today. This is amid, of course, President Trump and Vice President Vance being snubbed from, the Cheney funeral. Report: Bush family plotting comeback to retake GOP from Trump. I would say not going to happen for all the reasons that I just laid out. Politics is different now. To go back to the Bush type of Republican, the Romney type of Republican, we would be going back. We're not going to do that. So I want to read another excerpt from this, right? So it says, now rumors are stirring of a plot to end the so-called Bush exile and take back the GOP from the so-called scourge of Trumpism. Ooh, they make it sound very scary. Behind the scenes, and still with deep connections around the country, a shadow Republican Party is lying in wait to take over when Trump is gone. Again, ooh, like scary. And while the former president, they're talking about Bush, is determined not to publicly criticize Trump, much to the frustration of some of his former aides, he may not be averse to quietly helping to shape the Republican Party's long-term future. And then it says a former Bush official is predicting that there will be a very big open field on the Republican side for the 2028 presidential race. Okay, so who do we think that's going to be? If the Bushes are in charge, is Jeb going to run again? Does Jeb think that he has a chance against another Republican because Trump's not going to be on the stage? Again, we talked about this yesterday on the show. Ted Cruz rumored to be setting himself up for a 2028 run. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene. Maybe that's why she's on CNN all the time these days. I don't know. But it seems to me like this is going to be a redo of 2016. Except it's going to be J.D. Vance on the stage, and he's going to have to pick off a bunch of losers one by one like Trump did. And I don't think it would be smart to run against J.D. Vance. If you're on the Republican side, it's just dumb. The only people who would really be running against J.D. Vance would be like never Trumper rhinos that think that they have a shot, but they don't, because they clearly don't have a pulse on what Americans and Republicans are feeling. They don't get it, right? But they would only be throwing their hat into the ring for maybe a potential cabinet spot if Vice President Vance was elected to be the president. But I don't know. It would have to be someone from Trump's cabinet, I think, as J.D. Vance's vice presidential pick.
Vance, Rubio's hard to beat.
Totally.
That's hard
my
to beat.
pick.
You talk about the resume. Rubio's
That's
resume.
my pick. Yeah. So I wouldn't want anyone from Trump's cabinet currently to run against J.D. Vance in the primary. because I think, the Marco Rubios and the Ron DeSantis's, they're going to wait in the wings and, let JD Vance run against like the Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz types, and he'll totally wipe the floor with them. And then they can call in the big guns for the VP and other cabinet picks. And certainly the Vance Rubio ticket is my choice as of right now. There's no one else can hold a flame to that duo in my mind. There's just no way. And I would like to see, because I like Ron DeSantis. I think he did such a great job as governor, and that governorship is coming to an end here in Florida. And I would like to see him get some kind of a cabinet pick. As vice president, no, he just doesn't beat Rubio for me. But I like him a lot, and I want to see him kind of like take that next step. And I also like Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's super cool. And I think, again, I say this all the time, we're stacked on the Republican side. The Democrats are effed. Big time. Really, it's Gavin Newsom is the only viable option in my mind. And I don't like the guy, and I think his policies are crap. But like, I'm just saying, as if I'm in the shoes of a Democrat, like, who are you putting up?
Yeah, he's the only one that can raise enough money, period.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. 2028 can't come soon enough. I'm already excited for it. But anyway, the House and the Senate, they voted to release the Epstein files, and Trump signed it. So now the bill is going to require the Justice Department to release all files and communications related to Epstein, and also any information they have into the investigation into his death in prison. And when the DOJ releases this information, it allows for the redactions of Epstein victims' names to protect them, to protect ongoing federal investigations. But the DOJ cannot withhold information due to embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. I don't think that the DOJ has held back anything for those reasons, but as we know, Attorney General Bondi, she said she had the files. Then she was like, they're coming, they're on my desk. Then all of a sudden, no, they weren't on my desk. They were being withheld from her. There was like some holdup in the Southern District of New York, and she never got them. And then it was like, well, the case is closed. There's nothing to see here. But then it was like, well, what? You said that you had the files, and then you didn't have the files. So if you never got the files and they're being withheld from you, then clearly there's something going on. The case can't be closed. Then the DOJ released the stuff, the videos, and there was like gaps in the video. And, we remember all this stuff, right? Then Trump was like, we're moving on from this, right? Then people were like, no, we're not moving on from this. The American public was just not taking no for an answer. Then Attorney General Pam Bondi said, okay, my deputy's going to go interview Ghislaine Maxwell. It turns out no one in the DOJ had ever interviewed her before. Who would have thought to interview her? I guess no one cared. Which, again, goes back to the fact that, again, the Democrats did not care about this at all. This is just a new thing for them. But anyway, the DOJ has already said they're not going to release anything with victims' names in it, and they're not going to release these hundreds of hours of child sexual abuse material that they found on Jeffrey Epstein's computer, which, agreed, we don't need to see that, right? That makes sense. But if the DOJ has released everything that they were willing to release, and by willing, I mean aside from, these victims' names and the child sexual abuse material, then I don't know what is left. Like, what is left to release? And then, it seems like the Epstein estate has documents, but that doesn't mean that the FBI has those. That means the Epstein estate has those. So does that mean that, they voted for like every piece of information that was ever on Jeffrey Epstein ever to be released, because Epstein files is so broad. Like, what does that mean, right? I think personally, I want everything released. I think that's what people want, right? Everyone wants everything released, but that's so, how do you do that, right? Like, what are people asking for? Are they asking the DOJ to release everything that they have, or find stuff that they don't even have and then release it? Like, this could go on forever, right? Release everything that you have. Okay, well, does this mean they have to launch new investigations? And, it's just, again, it's broad. And again, maybe there's information on Jeffrey Epstein that they don't have yet. Maybe they can find it. I don't know. Or maybe there's information that no longer exists. Maybe it was, I don't know, they found shit in burn bags from the last administration. Like, who knows what's happened over the last however many years. So it'll be interesting to see. But President Trump wrote this on Truth Social, and it is long, but I figured we could have some fun with it. And if anyone has an alcoholic beverage on them, certainly drink every time he says Democrats. You'll have a good time. But let's pull this up again, because I'm gonna read some of this here. But he's
talked about Republicans taking money from.
Here it is. So he said Jeffrey Epstein, who is charged by the Trump Justice Department in 2019, not the Democrats, there's one, was a lifelong Democrat too. Donated thousands of dollars to Democrat 3 politicians and was deeply associated with many well-known Democrat 4 figures such as Bill Clinton, who traveled on his plane 26 times. Larry Summers, who just resigned from many boards, including Harvard, sleazebag political activist Reid Hoffman, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who asked Epstein to donate to his campaign after Epstein was charged, Democrat 5, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, and many more. Perhaps the truth about these Democrats, 6, and their associations with Jeffrey Epstein will soon be revealed, because I have just signed the bill to release the Epstein files. As everyone knows, I asked the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune to pass this bill in the House and the Senate, respectively, and because of this request, the votes were almost unanimous in favor of passage. At my direction, the Department of Justice has already turned over close to 50,000 pages of documents to Congress. Do not forget, the Biden administration did not turn over a single file or page related to Democrat 7 Epstein, nor did they even speak about him. Democrats 8 have used the Epstein issue, which affects them far more than the Republican Party, in order to try to distract from our amazing victories, including the great big beautiful bill. Keep going. Tax cut bill, strong borders, no women in sports for transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, lowering prices, biggest tax and regulation cuts in history, ending 8 wars, rebuilding our military, knocking out Iran's nuclear capability, getting trillions of dollars invested in the USA, creating the hottest country anywhere in the world. I love that. And even delivering a huge defeat to the Democrats, 9, on the recent shutdown disaster. For years, our great nation has had to endure Russia, Ukraine, impeachment hoax 1, impeachment hoax 2, and many other Democrat 10 created witch hunts and scams, all of which have been so terrible and divisive for our country and have been done to confuse, deflect, and distract from the great job that Republicans and the Trump administration are doing. And this latest hoax will backfire on the Democrats. 11, just as the rest have. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Okay, so if you were playing along there, 10 shots. We're going to have to get our stomach pumped here. I just thought it was funny that it was like the Democrats, and Democrat Jeffrey Epstein and all of his Democrat friends, and Democrat this, and Democrat that. I was like,
you need to take a deep breath after reading that fast. You outread the scroller.
I'm like, keep scrolling. Someone in the chat says, I'm drunk. Someone said I have to run to the liquor store now. 10 shots, or 11 shots. Anyway, Jasmine Crockett, though, she stepped in it. You know, she was on the House floor saying a bunch of Republicans, including Lee Zeldin, took money from Jeffrey Epstein when it wasn't really the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Watch this.
You talked about Republicans taking money from a Jeffrey Epstein. Here's what you said.
Who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio.
You mentioned Lee Zeldin there. He's now a cabinet secretary. He responded and said it was actually Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a doctor that doesn't have any relation to the convicted sex trafficker. Unfortunate for that doctor, but that is who donated to a prior campaign of his. Do you want to correct the record on the people that you...
Listen, I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein. Just so that people understand, when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen, because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled. And that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies. Because it was not the same one, that's fine. But when Lee Zeldin had something to say, all he had to say was it was a different Jeffrey Epstein. he admitted that he did receive donations from a Jeffrey Epstein, so at least I wasn't trying to mislead people. Now, have I dug in to find out who this doctor is? I have not. So I will trust and take what he says, is that it wasn't that Jeffrey Epstein, but I was not attempting to mislead anybody.
Sure, Jasmine. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Someone named Jeffrey Epstein. And that's all that matters.
Jeffrey Epstein. Not the.
All that matters. Someone named Jeffrey Epstein, not the Jeffrey Epstein that we're all talking about. And, clearly she's saying, well, I wasn't trying to mislead people. Well, clearly you were, because if Republicans were taking money from Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, whoever that is, and you decided to just bring that tidbit up on the House floor in relation to the Epstein files, then clearly you were trying to pin Republicans to Jeffrey Epstein. Then she's saying, well, we only had 20 minutes to prepare. My staff Googled it. They didn't have time to fact check it.
Don't you view it as one or the other? I mean, either like you're trying to pin it on him, and now you're trying to defend that it's
that you pinned
Epstein
on it wrong.
versus the Epstein. Yeah.
She's like, well, we only had 20 minutes to prepare. The Republicans just sprung this on us. So my staff Googled it. Okay, well, have your staff dig harder. Have your staff make sure they know what that they're talking about so that you're not on the House floor spewing garbage. And if you can't confirm it, then don't bring it up. But again, clearly she's trying to tie the GOP to Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Otherwise, she wouldn't have brought it up in this context. She's full of shit. See, it's not my annual F-bomb. It's my annual S-bomb.
We're getting there.
We'll see. Maybe if I have one in me tonight, we'll see if I can let one fly. I think I can do it. Anyway, yesterday I told you about former Democrat in the Virginia House of Delegates that was busted in a COVID PPP loan scheme. And he's been ordered now to pay back the $83,000 that he claimed he needed for his dental office to pay staffers. Meanwhile, he never had any employees on the payroll, so he was just pocketing the money, but he's going to have to give that back now, and he's on probation or something for 3 years. Well, now another Democrat, this time a House Democrat, has been charged with stealing $5 million in FEMA funds and making illegal campaign contributions to herself, by the way. So this is also tied to COVID funding. And she was also benefiting personally for her family medical practice, as well as her own campaign contributions. This is Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis McCormick. She's a Democrat representing Florida. And she was indicted by a grand jury yesterday because she stole and laundered $5 million in federal relief funds and used the money herself. This is crazy. I mean, this is just so crazy. So her and her brother kind of like worked on this scheme together, and it was a staffing contract funded by FEMA for COVID vaccinations that were tied back to their family healthcare company. So they were, again, this is another Democrat profiting off of COVID and the lockdowns and the vaccine mandates. And so their family company was overpaid $5 million in FEMA funds. It's a lot to be overpaid. So they were accused, she and her brother, of stealing the overpayment, $5 million, and then trying to wash it. They were trying to route it through different accounts and, hide the $5 million. But they've been caught by the DOJ. Not only that, McCormick and this guy she hired some guy to do her taxes in 2021. And they're also being charged with filing a false federal tax return for that year. So, just a little bit of fraud here and there. No big deal. No big deal. But she does face up to 53 years in prison if convicted. So, the Democrats, they milked the pandemic to carry out their shady business, all while the American public suffered from the lockdowns. Now, we've got some new news on COVID, by the way. And it's some research that has come out of Korea. And it is crazy. I mentioned this off the top of the show, but the more we find out about the COVID-19 vaccine, it doesn't seem good. We're never getting new good news about the COVID-19 vaccine. The more time that goes on, the more information that comes out, it's just getting worse. And recent research has said that the vaccine can lead to a higher risk of kidney injury and also respiratory infections. So these are two different studies. But this first Korean study was published in the International Journal of Infectious Diseases. And it looked at how people changed after getting the COVID-19 vaccine in terms of getting other infectious diseases. So they got the COVID-19 vaccine and they found that people who received 4 or more doses of the vaccine, so, people who are fully jabbed and then they're fully boosted and then they go back for their other booster and then they go back for another booster, we're talking about those people, they were less likely to get flu-like illnesses. They were less likely to get whooping cough. But people who were fully vaxxed and fully boosted were more likely to get common colds and other respiratory infections, which is just interesting to see. Like, maybe the COVID-19 vaccine, clearly didn't do much to prevent the spread of COVID. But interesting to hear that, it kind of tamped down on flu and whooping cough. But then you're more likely to get some of these more mild things. Like it definitely did. It took a hit on people's immune systems. That's what this is saying.
Oh, for sure. And it feels like, too, the COVID-19 itself was engineered with the spike proteins that were designed to attack human lung tissue. And, maybe that has something to do. Getting boosted 4 or 5 times overall makes you weaker.
And I know that obviously, getting a cold isn't that bad, right? But I would not want to be more susceptible to getting colds all the time. Like, that's so annoying. I would rather get sick, infrequently and have it be worse and then just get over it because I'm young and I'm strong and I have a good immune system. But to get all these vaccines and then be more likely to get all these mild things all the time, that's so annoying. I would be so pissed if I got the vaccine and then I'm like getting colds every few weeks. Oh my gosh, well, you can't really sue these people, but I would want to sue. Now, researchers have said that this study is observational. It's not like totally, like you can't take it to the bank, but they're like seeing these trends, which is interesting. So it doesn't, prove that the vaccine caused it, but it's like this association type causation, like correlation doesn't equal causation kind of a thing, but it is interesting to see. And then in another study in the International Journal of Medicine Sciences, they said that the COVID-19 vaccine is associated with a higher risk of acute kidney injury and dialysis within 1 year. So here are some of the numbers, which is interesting. So within 12 months, 15,809 vaccinated people developed acute kidney injury, compared to 11,081 unvaccinated. So if you are vaccinated, more likely to get acute kidney injury. Then here are some other numbers. A total of 1,513 people received dialysis within a year of vaccination, compared to 697 unvaccinated people. And it's just crazy to think, we're 4 years out from this vaccine being rolled out. What else are we going to find out? Years from now, side effects of this COVID-19 vaccine are still unknown. That is scary. That is really scary. And it's scary because at first we saw more of an immediate reaction when we saw the impact on young men. Young men were more likely to get myocarditis and other heart-related issues. We saw a lot of young athletes just dropping dead suddenly. Very scary, right? And that was happening sooner after vaccination. Now we're 4 years out and we're seeing, kidney failure, kidney disease, respiratory problems, more common colds. I mean, what are we going to find out in 10 years? What are we going to find out in 15 years? What are we going to find out in 30? It's just very scary. And again, the president of the United States at the time, Joe Biden, said, you're going to endure a severe winter of illness and death if you do not get this. And people thought, well, I'm going to lose my job. not even thought, I mean, people did lose their jobs after not getting this. So they thought, well, I'm not going to lose my livelihood. And here they are. They could potentially lose their lives over some of these other comorbidities that they might come down with in the future. It's just really scary. Anyway, do we have Scott here? Yeah? All right, I'm going to read some ads quickly, and then we're going to get into tactical detail with Scott Bryson. And then if we have time at the end, maybe I'll go back to some of those stories because they're fun. But first up, I want to tell you about Birch Gold. It is the one time of the year that Birch Gold Group gives away free gold with every qualifying purchase. That's right. For Black Friday, when you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA gold, Birch Gold will send you free gold to your home for every $20,000 purchase. Look, gold started this year around $2,600 an ounce. By October, it was over $4,000 an ounce. Why is that? Global uncertainty. 2025 has been defined by trade wars, central banks are pulling from the US dollar as global reserve currency, and military tension continues to build. Gold thrives in times of uncertainty. And if you're looking to diversify your savings, Birch Gold can help you. Plus, now through November 28th, get free gold with a qualifying purchase. Just text SCROLL to 989898 to claim your eligibility for a free info kit on gold. But your opportunity for free gold with purchase ends on November 28th. So do not wait. Text SCROLL to the number 989898 for full details. Message and data rates apply. Also want to tell you about our friends at Genucel. Ladies and gentlemen, time is running out on the early Thanksgiving sale from our dear friends. Don't wait and go to Genucel.com to get their brand new neckline lift essentials package for over 70% off. Get rid of turkey neck and sagging neckline and get compliments all around the dinner table. And when you order today, Genucel will include their top tier products, and many see results in just minutes, not hours. Plus, you're going to get their top-selling Genucel Deep Firming Vitamin C Serum. It is included in the Essentials package. You will give thanks this holiday for 10 years off your appearance, and everyone will see the difference, guaranteed, or get 100% of your money back. That is the Genucel promise. So go to Genucel.com/scroll, Genucel.com/scroll, and from now until Thanksgiving, you will get their brand new Gua Sha massager with red light therapy to help amplify your results. And I love red light therapy. And shipping is also free when you use my code at checkout, SCROLL, for an extra 10% off. Go to Genucel.com/scroll, Genucel.com/scroll. All right, Scott Bryson, he is former Secret Service agent. He is a Silver Lock contributor and host of the Beyond the Service podcast. You know him, you love him, and you love the segment on Thursdays. So let's get into tactical detail. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hey, Hayley, how are you doing?
Good. Unfortunately, we're starting off with a very scary scene that happened in Chicago. Unfortunately, a woman was burned alive. She is in critical condition right now, but here is the scene in Chicago earlier this week. Watch.
We are following breaking news this morning as a woman is now in critical condition in the hospital after she was set on fire by a man on a train.
So this happened just before 9:30 last night on the CTA Blue Line near Clark and Lake. Police tell us that 26-year-old woman was riding the train when she got into an argument with a man who police believe is 45 years old. That argument turned physical. And that's when officers say the man poured some kind of liquid on her and set her on fire. The train came to a stop. Police say he took off. The woman stumbled out of the train and collapsed. The fire was out by the time the fire department came, is what we're told, but they took the woman to Stroger Hospital in critical condition.
This is it's a horrific story. Thankfully, she is alive and she's in critical condition. So, we're going to pray that she pulls through here. But it reminds me of the situation on the subway in New York City. This happened not too long ago. An illegal immigrant lit a woman on fire. Unfortunately, she died on the subway in New York. So this seems to be happening. I mean, it seems like this is like a once in a lifetime kind of a crime, but it seems like this is going to happen. So what do you look for when you're on a train? Because a lot of these times you're stuck if the train's moving, you can't necessarily sometimes get into another car. So what do you think that you should do in a situation like this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just when we think we've reached an all-time low, it keeps getting worse and worse. I can't. If I was writing a book or a movie, I wouldn't think about something this disgusting. But I think what you have to do when you're riding public transportation is you have to almost treat it like you're in your own car going down the road. And road rage is a thing, but we feel protected because we're in our little bubble, or like the keyboard warrior thing or the telephone or whatever. But when you're in a public transportation, you're not in your car. You're not protected by your windshield. And I think you have to just, and again, I don't know what they were arguing about, but here's the thing. It takes two to tango, but I would never engage with another human being on a train that I don't know, especially if I don't want to sound sexist, but especially as a woman, or if I was a smaller guy, I'm just minding my business. I feel like I can handle myself in most situations, but I don't want any trouble. I don't want to, you just never know who you're dealing with.
Right.
That guy could be a mobster. He could be crazy lunatic like this guy. He could be a jujitsu freak. Why in the world would you just let it go? Whatever it is, it's not worth it. But to answer your question, if you can, just, maybe just try to, this is so counterintuitive for me, but don't make eye contact. Just say, hey, look, okay, whatever. I'm sorry. Apologize. Even if you're not wrong, just say, I'm sorry. And then just try to move away. There's antagonists out there and they're not going to let it go. But hopefully if you could sort of move yourself along, maybe the right guy in the right train would step up and intervene for you. It doesn't look like that happened this time, but I would just try to avoid conflict at all costs.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this guy, I'm asking you, what to do in this situation, but unfortunately, this kind of thing is going to get worse because of just activist DAs and judges and people like this who let people like this off the hook. This guy has been arrested 49 times.
Yeah.
So this is one of these like reoffense type situations, and he was charged with an act of terrorism for this. But and again, I'm not trying to victim blame, right? I'm trying to get people to start thinking, if this is happening to you, what do you do? Because again, you and I, when we're having this conversation, we can only think of that. We can't fix the problems with these activist DAs or anything in this segment. Mm-hmm. But what we can do is think about, if you are on public transportation and maybe a guy comes up to me, and if I'm sitting there and he starts dousing me in gasoline or some liquid, what do I do in that moment? Do I get up? Do I take my clothes off? Do I run? Do I start screaming? Like if there's gasoline all over me, I mean, if he lights a match, it's done, right? So it's like, what do you do in that moment?
Yeah, there's no really good answer, unfortunately. To your point, like this starts way before the train incident ever happens because of the court systems and all that, which we have to vote these people out. But when you're in it, you're not thinking about that. That ship is sailed. So it's fight or flight has to kick in. And if you're not a fighter, that's okay. But by God, you have to start moving and you have to make a scene. You need to get loud. And I'm sure she probably did because she was probably freaked out. And if you get doused in something, you probably are going to scream. But be very loud, make a scene. There's CCTV on everything. You want to draw as much attention to yourself as possible. You want to try, distance is your best friend. I used to work for a guy, who say, hey, Scott, who's your best friend? And you're talking tactics. The answer is distance. You've got to try to separate yourself. You're not trying to win the fight. You're trying to survive the attack.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so scary to think. My prayers are going out to her. And it's scary because we've seen this happen before. And the woman in New York didn't survive. And I'm really hoping that this woman does. But again, this could be one of these like copycat type attacks where this guy is crazy. He saw the attack in New York and he thought, well, I can do that. Maybe he saw the attack in Charlotte on the light rail and is, oh, well, this is a good opportunity. I can take advantage of a woman who's trapped on, public transportation. It's just one of these things. Like this seems like our society is getting increasingly violent and they're kind of like piggybacking on top of each other. But you gave me 2 videos today that I wanted to talk about because these are 2 examples of kids having what you call this condition yellow and staying alert. And they're very smart. So I want to go through this first one. This is a young girl. hiding from a car that seemed to be following her and slowing down. So let's take a look at this.
The surveillance camera captured the terrifying moment when a young girl, on her way home from school, noticed a suspicious car following her. Sensing danger, the girl quickly took cover behind the truck. The driver of the suspicious vehicle stopped and waited for her to reappear, but when no one showed up, he drove off, only to return shortly afterward.
Weird.
She did her best to stay out of the man's sight.
She did a great
Fortunately,
job, by the way.
after several failed attempts to find her, he finally left. Although the driver was reported, he was not arrested as he hadn't committed a crime.
It's scary to think what could have happened if she wasn't alert and she wasn't paying attention. You know, a lot of kids, they've got their heads in their iPads. And again, I'm not even trying to blame kids. Adults are guilty of this too. We've got AirPods in, they're running, they're listening to music, they're listening to podcasts, they're not paying attention. My question is, because she did it, you even said this, she did a great job. She recognized that this car was slowing down and she was trying to hide herself. So I give her props for that. Would she have been better off running away?
Yeah. So what I wanted to say to your audience is this personifies what I talk about when we talk about the color codes of awareness. Condition yellow is exactly what this little girl did. I would almost bet you a paycheck one of her parents is a cop or something like that, because this little girl was switched on.
Yeah.
And it's called paying attention. It's not being paranoid. She was just minding her business, but she was on her phone, but hopefully she was calling her mom or texting or something. I don't know what she was doing, but yeah, I think my only critique, and it's hard to throw shade at a 9 or 10-year-old girl, but like she should run right now. That was a nice looking neighborhood. Of course, she got captured on somebody's, CCTV doorbell or whatever it was. Chances are it looked like it was about, dusk or something. People are probably at home. My only suggestion to her would be run right now, because it looked like the weather was kind of nice outside. Somebody might have been outside mowing or doing the trash, but run right now.
Yeah. Plus, I think if you're running and you're screaming help, someone's going to be more likely to hear you, see you, and maybe that would also scare off the guy. But I think because she was hiding from him, I think the guy who was slowing down in the car was thinking, oh, well, she's not going to be an easy target. She's paying attention, right? Like she knows that I'm trying to do something. So good on her. And this next video, similarly, a little girl who is very aware. She's trying to get into an apartment complex and she was alone and she looks very young. So I don't know why she was walking home alone, but this guy tried to get into the apartment complex behind her. Let's take a look at this one.
When the smart little girl realized that she was being followed by a strange man, she quickly came up with a clever plan. She called the intercom, and as soon as the door opened, the man tried to pass behind her immediately. Except that the little girl lets him pass first, and she waits for the door to close, staying nervously outside. The man can be seen by security cameras waiting patiently inside. Then he decides to hide under the stairs to watch the little girl without knowing that all of his actions are being filmed. A little later, the little girl calls the intercom to open the door. She enters and quickly goes up the stairs. The man, noticing that she has finally entered, follows her quickly, but the little girl was too fast and managed to get away from him. However, he did not want to drop it, so he still tries to find her. Fortunately for the girl, the man ended up leaving. The footage was passed on to the police, and he was then identified and arrested. Let this serve as a warning, and please, teach your children situational awareness.
You know what's sad is when I grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, I used to run around my neighborhood. We lived in a nice neighborhood, bunch of kids in the neighborhood. We would all, run around and play tag and manhunt and whatever. And even if it was dusk or if it was dark out in the summer, we would all run around and play and ride bikes and stuff. And it seems like now, for parents who want to teach their kids independence or let them go to the movies by themselves, let them walk home from school by themselves, I don't know if you can do that anymore.
No, I don't think you can. And I'm a little older than you guys. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and and everything. So, it was way different for us. We weren't allowed inside the house, until it was dark. We knew when to come home when the street lights came on, and we didn't want to be inside. I miss the good old days. And I think, unfortunately, those days are gone. My children are grown now, and I'm hoping to have grandchildren at some point. But we watch them like a hawk. I can remember my wife watching my children like at Target or Walmart or the grocery store, just watching them like a hawk. It's probably because she lived with me, and I got paid to see the glass half empty. But we I would rather be a little overzealous and then have to live with, a child. There's some things that are worse than death, Hayley. You know that. Like, can you imagine a child being abducted and not knowing what happened to it? I just can't fathom that. But to address what the little girl did in the video, she did awesome. The only thing she screwed up was she should have just run. Like, I don't know why she went in the building. Like, I guess she's a kid, right? But she was really slick. And again, to your audience, when I talk about Condition Yellow, that's exactly what I'm talking about. These two little girls did great.
Yeah. No, I felt proud just watching it. She knew, well, this guy's coming behind me. I'll let him go first. I'm going to let the door close. And the guy was keeping the door open, like, come on, like, come in behind me. And she was like, nope, see you later, close the door. To your point about why she went inside, I mean, maybe she could have waited a little longer, right? But she probably was trying to get to her parents or a trusted adult. And she probably thought, well, this guy's in between me and my trusted adult. Maybe, running the other way wasn't the safest thing either. So, I think she did the best that she could. Thankfully,
she did good.
She got inside quickly enough. This next video, girls in a park. They were confronted by like a guy being weird. Let's see if they did the right thing.
Hey, dude.
Do you happen to have an extra cigarette?
No. We do not have cigarettes.
Hey, ma'am. When can I come see you?
Girl, can you leave us alone, please?
You know that I always liked you.
No.
You did. Yes, you knew. Look.
Who are you, dude? Like, go away.
I don't want to.
Mom.
I don't want to. I don't want to.
So these girls are getting up and leaving this guy, and they're walking away.
Fuck? Oh my God, what the fuck?
What's your take on this?
Yeah, well, okay, the guy's obviously a super freak. So the girl filming seemed to be a little more switched on than the other girl. The other girl kind of thought it was funny, and the guy was weird. But after the first conversation, listen, there's nothing illegal about comments. Hey, do you have a cigarette? A little weird, but no. And then the conversation completely just went off the rails. It was like it made no sense. After he asked the second question, it's time to get up and move. And this right here, ladies, is why you must carry some type of device with you. I recommend the Second Amendment. If you don't want to do that, please carry pepper spray. And I'm more of a fan of pepper gel. I like the gel because it gets on the person's skin and it doesn't mist as much. But bear spray is another good one. That'll really mess you up. So you've got to carry something. In my opinion, you need to have, in addition to the situational awareness, which the girl did pretty good, you have to have some type of defense mechanism, in my opinion.
I also think too, and women are more likely to strike up a conversation. They don't want to seem rude. Someone comes up to them, oh, no, we don't have a cigarette. It is okay to not answer.
No.
And I know that instinctually, because I'm the same way, I'd be like, oh, no, thank you. Or, oh, it's okay to just get up and leave. Like if a guy is creepy and bothering you, you do not have to answer him. You do not have to entertain whatever he is saying. You can get up and be rude. This is a random stranger who probably wants to do harm to you. The faster that you can get up and go, the better.
Can I just say one thing to that? So we talk to our children about, we don't talk to strangers. We do not talk. You do not entertain a stranger. Why does that stop when we become an adult? You don't owe this SOB anything. Being rude is fine. You're not really being rude. You're protecting yourself.
Right.
So I think, to your point, these idiots, these people prey on your vulnerability because you're a nice, kind person, and women tend to be more, tenderhearted and kind than men. And so they prey on that and they take advantage of that. You don't owe this guy squat. Tell him to piss right off. That's what I would do.
Yeah, no, totally. It's great advice. So this last video that I have it's unfortunate because this is ongoing. A mom in Nashville who is pregnant is now missing because she got in a rideshare. She was in an Uber. So here's the story. Watch.
Well, this pregnant woman is missing in Nashville. Her husband tells police that she disappeared during an Uber ride through the city. This is Tiffany Moore. Her sister and her husband both tell police that she is 4 months pregnant. Her husband told police that he looked at his Uber account and it showed that she had been dropped off over here in the Glencliff neighborhood. He shows up in that neighborhood. It's an apartment complex. He said he went to the door, heard noises, but nobody came to the door when he knocked. Police say they didn't find anyone there either. Police say that her phone last pinged here on Cross Creek Road. This is in the Green Hills neighborhood of Nashville. They say they went to a home. Person living there said, sure, come on in, look around. They didn't find more. And the person living there said they'd never even heard of anyone named Tiffany Moore before. Police say they also searched hospitals and jails, but no sign of the missing pregnant woman.
Scott, we talk about safety every week. And one thing that we have mentioned before is do not get in the car, right? If there's someone trying to get you into their car, the likelihood that you're going to be found is slim and it's going to be harder to find you, right?
Yep.
Now, when you're getting into a ride share, if you're getting into an Uber, a Lyft, something like this, the whole point is to get in the car. This is the service that you're paying for. But it's difficult when you don't know. I mean, these drivers are supposed to be vetted, but this woman, pregnant woman, a wife, gets into an Uber, and who knows what happened? Maybe, I'm not trying to speculate where she was going or who she was going to see. We don't know if this was wrongdoing on the Uber driver's part or someone else, or something went awry on the way. Who knows? We don't know. But it's scary to think, we tell women, don't get in the car, fight like hell before you get in the car. When it's an Uber, the whole point is to get in the car.
Yeah, that's not a good situation. I think what I would, this one's tough because I don't know enough about the case, and I definitely don't want to victim shame. I mean, first of all, if something nefarious really did happen, which it sounded like it did, the husband could have done something and just said it was an Uber thing. Who really knows? But let's take that off the table. Let's just say the Uber thing happened. Prior to getting in the car, what you could do, you've got to get in the car because you ordered it. That you're trying to get from A to B. I get it. There's no hurry, ladies. There's no rush. Roll the window down. Let's say the guy pulls up to the curb and you pop in on the right side or the left. It doesn't matter. When you open your door, roll the window down. Make sure the child window locks not on. Make sure the child safety locks aren't on, because if the child safety locks are on in the door, at least if you can't open the door, well, guess what? Your window's down now. You can open it from the outside. If the window won't roll down, that should be a red flag. And then I would look immediately in the door jamb to see if the child safety lock. So there's absolutely no rush. And if this guy's a true car service guy, he shouldn't have those things in place because he's not driving children around. So just slow down and then just do a little cursory search to make sure you can get out of the car in case, God forbid, something like this would happen. That would be the only thing I can think of.
Right. I guess, certainly not if the car is moving quickly, but you could also jump out the window if you can open it. But yeah, I think, we talk about Uber safety, and I think it's pretty well known that you should make sure that the license plate matches your app and make sure that the picture of the driver matches the guy who's showing up. You don't have to get in the car, right? Worst case scenario, you say, sorry, you cancel it. And you eat the $5 cancellation fee. And if you're worried about the $5, I have contacted Uber before for certain situations, and they usually give you your money back if you complain. So if you're worried about, losing $5, it's not worth your life. But another thing too is sharing location, right? Because I think this is maybe a point of contention when you're new in a relationship. I know in relationships in my past, it's I don't know. When you're married though, and this couple is married, you should have each other's locations. I have all of my friends' locations. I love stalking them. I'm always like, hey, I saw you're in the city. What are you doing in the city? Like, hey, you're over here. I mean, I'm always stalking my friends. So, and anytime, like if I was going on a dating app date and I didn't know the guy, like all my friends know exactly where I am. I tell them that I'm going on a date. I'm like, look at my location. They have my location. So I'm a big proponent of sharing location because it's better to share it than not have it, right? The more people that have it, the better. What's your take on location sharing? And, you know, if you know that your wife or your husband or your loved one is getting into an Uber or traveling, best to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. A lot of my friends have Life 360. I don't really have that because our kids are older now. But yeah, you have to be able to share your locations. And it's got, listen, if you're in a relationship and there's a trust factor problem, then that's not a healthy relationship. So it's got really nothing to do with trust. It's got to do with the crazy ass world that we live in. And I need to be able to see where you are in case, God forbid, something really, really bad happens. At least we have a starting point. And that's really morbid, but like we have to know where to start to look. Otherwise, we're just chasing our tail. So
yeah. And also, if you're in a ride share, text your friends, text your husband, whoever, like text a family member, your mom, your dad, hey, I'm in an Uber. I mean, just to let people know, because at least then you can pinpoint, God forbid, like you said, if something happens, it's like, okay, well, she was texting at this time, you know, then you can kind of start putting things together, some pieces together. Anyway, hope this woman is found, and I hope that she is found alive. But I did want to ask you too, in a situation like this, like a missing person, at what point does it get to be, okay, now we're looking for a body. We're not looking for a missing person anymore. Like, because we talk about getting into a car and your chances are slim of survival, right? Because, or your chances are slim of being found. Going to a second location, that's not good, right? So what are the odds now, days later, that this woman is going to be found?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's probably not good. They, you know, homicide detectives have like a 48-hour rule. Most of these crimes are solved. Homicides, a known homicide. This is not a known homicide, but known homicides are usually solved within 48 hours. After that, it gets exponentially harder to solve. Mm-hmm. And so, like in a case like this, it's, you know, they're still holding out hope, obviously hoping for the best, but you know, it's going to eventually go from a search party to a recovery party. And, you know, I don't know. I think more often than not, you know, these things, you can track your phone, but once the phone dies, or if the guy tosses the phone out and separates it from the body, you know, it'll just be, you know, this is going to sound very oxymoronic, but it'll probably be dumb luck. So, a truck driver will find her in a dumpster, assuming this is, you know, we don't know what's happened, but like a stranger will find her hiking in the woods, or she'll be in a ditch, or a truck driver will find her at a truck stop. Something very just tragic like that.
Yeah. Well, we hope that that's not the case here.
Yeah.
Holding out hope, sending prayers to everyone involved, you know, law enforcement who is looking for her, family looking for her. So hoping for the best there. But Scott, Bryson, thank you so much for your intel. I absolutely love this segment. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Hayley. Have a good night.
All right. Well, we are over time now. So let me just tease that I have a very long scrolling time tomorrow and some fun topics that we didn't get to tonight. So you're going to have to tune in for more tomorrow. Rumble.com/Hayley is where you can watch the show in full, of course. You can catch it on Apple Podcasts. You can catch it on iHeart, Spotify. Make sure that you send a link to a friend. Make sure that you follow me at Hayley Caronia on social media for more content. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow.